Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Nathaniel Collins versus Cristobal Lorente rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content and I will try my best to get out there for you guys. You can also use the Patreon for betting tips and advice as well, and I appreciate all the support in which I've had with it so far, and of course the link will be in the description. Let's get straight into this one, and I didn't do a prediction for the first fight between these two because it was a good fight, but I didn't think it would be quite as competitive as what it was. And also with this week in boxing not being, tremendously stacked. We've had quite a few good weeks recently with, Fury and the big kind of fights in that way. And with Shizora as well the week before. But this week it's a little bit quieter. Obviously we've got the Baumgartner fights, we've got Ben Whittaker fighting in a smaller fight. But this does, in my opinion, stand out as actually an evenly matched good contest this weekend. I mean, you look at some of the other cards, the bigger cards that are going on this weekend. You look at, like I mentioned, Ben Whittaker. On paper, it's an easier fight. You look at Alicia Baumgartner. That's an easier fight as well. This one is coming off a rematch. It's a competitive fight, which I believe has shown can go either way, and again I think will definitely be interesting. Of course, it's for the WBC silver featherweight title, and it's also a final eliminator for the WBC world title, which is Bruce Carrington's belt at the moment, with him being elevated to full world champion. And now with Top Rank being with DAZN, it could be an easier fight to make for Queensberry if Collins does win. And if Lorente wins, then it wouldn't surprise me if Lorente goes and actually signs for Queensberry himself. I don't think he's with a major promoter at the moment, so again, it really wouldn't surprise me. This fight is a fight that, of course, had to be made again for either fighter to be able to progress in their careers. Without any doubt, I'm glad that this fight has been made. I mean, I've seen fighters in the past go and have draws and then just try and move on, and they'll have a comeback fight and then try and move on to try and find another route to become a world champion. But this is for Nathaniel Collins and for Lorente as well, both of them being right there for a world title shot. Of course, this being the final eliminator, like the last fight was. Whoever would have won that last fight should have and probably would have gotten a world title shot. So really, this is the best route for either one of these fighters to go out there and to stamp their name to be the next in line for the world title. And the WBC world title was a big world title to win as well. And it was by far the toughest test of Collins' career last time against Lorente, probably since the Zach Miller fight, which was a competitive fight as well, but wasn't as close as Collins versus Lorente was. And, Collins was doing well in the early rounds and was dominating really, and you could have definitely made the argument. I feel like if you were to lean one way or the other as to which one would have won, I probably would have lent to Collins by one round, but again maybe one or two rounds, but again it would have been very close. And again, that's why I felt like it was a very tough competitive fight, tougher than I feel Collins anticipated. And that's the thing with a rematch, of course, he's going to be respecting Lorente as an opponent more. He, like I say, was able to go through that fight without taking, I think, too much visible damage, which I think is a good thing, either of them, or both of them, for coming into this rematch. But again, his body has been through a lot. Of course, he had a surgery, which was quite a drastic surgery last year, I think it was, or the year before, and that was life-threatening. So he's definitely been through a lot with his career and his body, and it will definitely be interesting to see if he is able to go into that extra gear that might be needed to beat somebody like a Lorente. And of course, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, we'll be the home fighter here again, but will he be able to create anything different for Lorente to deal with from his shorter southpaw stance? Of course, he's a good southpaw in that way, but he is coming in with quite a significant, it looked at the time, height disadvantage. Nathaniel Collins, it's not that significant. There's, I think, 3 inches in height between the two of them. I'm not too clued up on what the reach was, but again, it wasn't that significant, I didn't think, but he just looked it a bit more in that fight, which was interesting. And if Lorente is able to keep that range a little bit more with the strong jab in which he does throw, then he can definitely have success in this fight like he did in the last one. Lorente is now coming off 2 draws actually in a row and has vacated his European title for this fight to move closer to a world title fight, I'd imagine is the reason. I'm sure there was probably something in the contract or some sort of negotiations where they had to vacate the European title to be allowed to keep the WBC silver or to be allowed to stay in that final eliminator spot. It's a bit weird. I feel like this could have been made with the same titles and the exact same positions it was the first time around, with Lorente being European champion, being WBC champion, and this also being a final eliminator for the WBC belt like it was last time. But of course, it's not. Instead, we've got Liam Davis now as European champion, as he got the chance against Grandelli, who of course Lorente and Collins has both beat. So I mean, there's a mutual name between them there as well. But again, it's just a bit of a random one as to why the European title fight was kind of forced to be vacated and wasn't on this card. Of course, Lorente will be seen as more of a threat from Scottish fans than before, and he has shown that he's clearly not just gonna step aside and allow Collins to be able to hurt him and to be able to get him out of there, because Lorente has been dropped in the past in a previous fight, and he did at one point look a little bit shaken from a punch in which he took from Collins. I think it was the 4th or 5th round, and it did seem to have a bit of an effect on him, but again, he stuck to what was working well and started, I suppose, to work even more than he was in the early rounds, and then, like I say, started to have more and more bits of success throughout the fight, and that seemed to wake him up to an extent as well. To speak about both fighters more skill-wise individually, though, we'll start off with Lorente. He catches you coming in with straight shots well, and that was what he was doing a lot against Collins, and he was really disrupting the rhythm of Collins when he was coming in, because Collins can leave a lot of defensive gaps when he's just kind of on rushing with his strong, powerful attacks. But again, if he is just doing that, he can get caught with punches, especially the straights, which again did seem to have a good snap in them from Lorente. He can get his jab through well. He, I think, gets it better than that of Collins, in my opinion. He can get through strong punches in exchanges as well, and there was definitely exchanges later on in that fight with Collins the first time around where he was landing the better out of the two of them. He shows heart. He will definitely save it all for the end, and I think he does improve throughout the fight. He can take a shot and then start working himself a bit more. Like I just kind of mentioned, he did get wobbled a little bit, and then started to grow into the fight himself a bit more. And when he starts to, like I say, mix in the straights after his jab as well, again, that's when he can have bits more success. And he was also showing some alright shortened punches in the latter part of the real latter part of their first fights. And negatives about him: he's a slower starter, and I think he needs to be a much quicker starter if he's going to be able to really win enough rounds to win this fight clearly, because there was just the early rounds where he was just allowing Collins to win from the looks of it. He, like I say, can be outworked at them times as well. I feel like, doesn't always get himself set to throwing close, and he can be a little bit, unaware when he's trying to throw in close and not, like I say, ready. And it did take him a little bit of the fight to, like I say, get comfortable throwing in close. He ducks his head down to the right quite often, and Collins started to notice that, and there was a time in which he landed on a multi-punch combination when Lorente dropped his head to the right, and it did seem to hurt Lorente, and I think that was when he started to box a bit better. But again, he can't just be doing that all the time and not really putting up that good of a guard. He, like I mentioned, has been dropped before, so he has been hurt to an extent. He can definitely get drawn into a war just throwing, whereas I think him behind his jab is actually, and using the straight shot punches, is actually probably his best way to win. He can stay on the ropes and just kind of try and throw out of a bad position, and he does stand quite tall as well. Collins as a fighter, I feel like he's quite a different type of fighter. I think stylistic wise, that's why the fight gelled so well. It's two fighters that are willing to go toe-to-toe and to a war, but they are different type of fighters, I feel. Collins, when he's at his best, he's got kind of the small movements in his footwork where he's kind of just bouncing back and forth, and he looks really good in that way, and that can add to his explosiveness, in which he definitely does have. He does carry power as well. I mean, of course, we've seen him go and destructively knock out some British level opponents, but then also we've seen him against Lee McGregor, who again isn't really, I feel like he's a little bit, has been a bit of an overrated fighter in the past, but I think he's coming to show that he's not tremendously good, but he's also not bad either. He's all right level. And he did make pretty good work of him, Collins, as well. He throws punches from varying angles. He'll nicely go to the body or come round over the top with a hook, which really does come from kind of an upwards to downwards angle. He throws often in combinations. He's good when he moves off to a different angle when he's finished throwing his combination. That was something in which he can do nicely. He is explosive, like I mentioned. He gets his overhand right through most of the time, and that's a weapon in which he definitely does perhaps come in a little bit recklessly with, but again is a weapon in which is a strong punch for him. Negatives about him: he can swing hooks from quite far out a lot of the time as well, which again isn't necessarily the best thing, and can leave him to, like I say, then be in a bad spot to then get caught afterwards. He comes forwards dropping his hands when he's throwing, which again isn't necessarily the best thing to do when Lorente will, like I say, try and time you with one of his jabs or just a straight punch in general. Like I said, he's just launching himself in a bit too much, and that can become a little bit predictable as well. He can struggle to get his jab through him at a mid-range, I think. He'll try and set off with his jab, but then he'll miss the jab and then just fling himself in. And then he can also smother himself as well and square up in close. His chin can be a bit high as well at times, which again isn't really the best. And I don't feel like he fights on the back foot all too well. I think that's when he often more just resorts into just flinging himself in more than actually doing the small movements in which, like I said, small bouncing movements which keep him in and out, and is probably where he's at his best. And again, his head movements, it sometimes is good when he's really being aware of it, but again, sometimes it's a thing where he's just not really acknowledging it too much. And again, it wasn't really something he was using all too much against Lorente into the later rounds, especially when he started trading laps a bit more. Who do I think is going to win this fight? I think it's going to be a competitive fight again. I think, like I said, just the styles-wise, it's going to be competitive. I think Nathaniel Collins is going to win a unanimous decision. I think it's going to be slightly clearer than the first fight, but again, I still think it's going to be competitive. I think the scorecards are going to lean more towards Collins' favour. I think it could have been a unanimous decision win to Collins if they'd have given him one extra round in that fight, and I feel like they could have done that in the first time around, but I think he's going to be able to, hopefully, like I say, box and move a bit better, not get drawn into the same exchanges, beat Lorente to the punch, beat, like I say, that bit more explosive, but again, just have a little bit more to his arsenal and be more aware to hopefully keep his hands a bit higher and, like I say, to actually move off continuously after throwing, and that can disrupt the angles in which Lorente can throw his straight shots from, and like I say, just not get drawn into quite as much of a trading war into them later rounds when Lorente grows in, and maybe try to manage himself a little bit better throughout the rounds, because like I say, he didn't look completely exhausted by the end, but both did give a lot, and it would be nice to see that he can save that energy a little bit better now, knowing that it's probably going to be Lorente's plan to go a bit stronger into the later rounds. And then we can go on to fight next. I mean, really, it should be Bruce Carrington. Will we get the Bruce Carrington fight? I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what plans Top Rank have with Bruce Carrington. Probably some big fights. And imagine if they don't make Carrington versus Collins, it probably will be ordered by the WBC, or at least I would hope it would be. And if that doesn't end up happening, then Carrington will probably have to unify against another champion. And if that doesn't end up happening, a fight like a Nick Bull fight could be a great fight. Bull was actually ranked higher in the WBC than what he is right now with the WBA, I think. And when, of course, he was WBA champion until his last fight. So Collins versus Bull could be a great fight to, like I say, to show who's the kind of best featherweight in the UK. I mean, just entertainment stylistic wise, Lewis Neri could be a great fight as well. He's ranked with the WBC, but I doubt that would happen because Neri's, from the looks of it, moving back down to the bantamweight division, or at least he is for one more fight in which he's having next. with Casemiro. So again, that would be an interesting fight. But Collins has fought his past, I think, 3 or 4 fights in Scotland now, and he is starting to build that audience and that fan base there. So it will be interesting as well to see if he wins this fight, if he does get a world title shot, if somebody like a Bruce Carrington is really going to want to come to Scotland to fight him. I doubt it. And so it will then be the chance to see if Collins is then willing to go to America and if Queensberry are willing to allow Collins to go to America to have that fight, because we do kind of rarely see Queensberry fighters going and fighting in America. You know, that fight could be made on a Saudi show, and that could possibly happen. It wouldn't surprise me if it's on like a Riyadh season show out in Saudi or somewhere like that, or in like a more of a neutral venue. But they do rarely allow their fighters, especially the good ticket sellers who have been main eventing in places like America. We just don't really see that all too often. And again, unless that gets put on a big, like say Ring Magazine show, Riyadh season show, then again, I don't know how well Top Rank and Queensberry would be able to work together to find a place where they can make the fight go ahead, let alone actually get the negotiations going to make that fight happen. Again, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.